So we are now at 1 year owning the 2014 Lamborghini Gallardo. And what a year it has been. Obviously, if you know that the first 4 months were, let's just say, less than ideal. But the last 8 months of owning my absolute childhood dream car have been so much fun. This car has lived up to my dream car status. It has been a blast. So let's take a drive in the Lambo after a whole year of owning this amazing car and talk about more about what it's been like to own. Already at 1 year owning this car. So if you're new to the channel, obviously you've seen quite a lot of content on this car over the last year, starting way back when I was 11 and I got a model car of the 04 Gallardo right when that car was introduced. Something about it just spoke to me, and as soon as I got that model car, I can't believe I have a home video of me opening that toy. But when I got that car, I was hooked. I was like, I am gonna buy a Lamborghini one day and it will be a Gallardo. So mine, 2014 LP550-2, one of the last few hundred that was ever made. You can see I got the 50th logo on my t-shirt because this car has that logo under the window because this was built on the 50th anniversary year, which would be 2013. So cool to have one of the final Gallardos. So with this car, I bought it with 18,000 miles. My wife and I flew to New York and drove this 11 hours home. By day one, I had about 800 miles under my belt with this car. Then the next 4 months, not so much, about 300 miles, obviously. However, since then, I'm now at 22,400 miles. I have had a lot of fun driving it. It's obviously not my daily driver. I have other cars and press cars for YouTube and things like that. So it's not something I technically drive on the day-to-day. However, I don't care about putting miles on the car. I drive it as much as I possibly can. So insurance on this car is $1,500 per year. Take the highest deductible, pay in full, multiple cars, really not all that expensive. The registration, so I just got my property tax bill, that is gonna be $1,300. I did one oil change so far. That was about $100 I did myself. 7 drain plugs. It's really easy, honestly, to do an oil change. And that's basically it. I did do tires, which were $1,500, and that's it. I haven't had no issues with the car, no mechanical or electronic or engine issues or anything like that. I've had one check engine light, and that was an evap leak because I didn't tighten the gas cap. So I cleared the code, tightened the gas cap, and we've been fine ever since. Done a lot of around town driving, some highway stuff, a lot of mountain road trips though. It is so fun. Hitting the mountains, hitting the turns in this car. Man. But yeah, I've done a lot of just fun road trips. This car, every time I drive it, it is a fun experience. I've never just done like boring highway commuting with this car. That's not where this thing shines. It shines going through turns, hearing that naturally aspirated engine just roar to 8,500 RPM. So mountain road trips have been a blast. I recently did a road trip visiting my whole childhood hometown. If you missed that video, it was posted a couple days ago. But driving this to the house I grew up in when I was 3 years old, the place I got the toy model car of the Gallardo, all my schools, so that was super fun. So my favorite and least favorite things about the car. Least favorite, I really don't have anything true that's my least favorite, just because this car isn't modern. You know, you don't hop in a 68 Shelby Mustang and expect it to have Super Cruise or some fancy Apple CarPlay, right? You hop in an old school car and you expect to have the character of that generation. When I drive this car, I love where this is. This navigation screen, it works. I have my home address set in here. Had to do the street outside my neighborhood because my neighborhood isn't on here because it's an old system, but it can still get me home. I can plug in my phone to the plug in the dashboard and listen to my music. That's literally all I need in this car. I don't need the fancy screens. I don't need any of that stuff. I just like the character that this car has, the way it is from 2014 with Lamborghini's 2000s technology. So there's no real least favorite thing in this car. The character about it is what I appreciate the most. The things I like the most is everything. The engine is addicting to listen to. It is just glorious sounding. So the only mods I've done the Superleggera style tips. They are OEM. The Superleggera style carbon fiber wing, and then when I bought it, it already had an exhaust system on it, which is why it sounds so good. That's the only mods, and that is all I plan to do to this car. I love modifying my other cars, the Supras, the GTRs, the Type R, the Audis. This car does not at all crave modifications. I am so opposite when I'm in this car versus the other cars. I don't think cars like this look good with aftermarket things, quite honestly. Aftermarket wheels, extra wings, modern tablets, I think they look absolutely awful in this. This is an old school car. It has that character. So for me, period correct modifications and OEM correct modifications are the only things I would do to this. And this car is perfect the way it is. So for me, just driving this car and spending time with it is the sweet spot. I don't desire to change it. I just love it the way it is. Now, as far as when I do drive this around, every single time I'm out in this, I get people giving me thumbs ups, waving, taking photos, taking videos, asking me about it. It gets a lot of heads turning. And I think it's also the sweet spot to where it's not a bright purple Aventador SVJ that you know costs nearly $1 million. This car, I'm glad I can dumb it down. You know, if people ask me about the pricing, I can say you can get one of these around 60 grand, which is true. You can get a 2004 with high mileage for close to 60 grand, which kind of relaxes people if they think you must be a millionaire to own a car like that. You can get these cars for minivan money, quite honestly. Obviously mine was one of the later ones, so kind of in the middle of the spectrum of pricing from the anniversary manuals, Superleggeras, and the oldest ones possible. But it's nice to have a car that, yes, it's flamboyant, it's exotic looking, but it's not that crazy to where it gets like the negative attention. It's only been positive. Knock on Lamborghini leather, in one whole year it's been so much good, I guess, attention. Another thing with that, a lot of non-car people don't necessarily know all the brands of cars. However, the name Lamborghini, everybody knows. Even if you're not into cars, you've heard of a Lamborghini. And I've had this comment multiple times where people look at it and say, like, wow, that's a cool car. Is that like a Lamborghini or something? When I tell them, yes, it is an actual Lamborghini, they kind of get mind blown because in their mind, the term Lamborghini is kind of a synonym for saying an exotic car, a supercar. So they don't really know what a Lamborghini actually is. So when I say this is a Lamborghini, it's pretty cool just because, you know, they don't know that that's a real car that you would ever see. So it's been cool sharing the car, going to car shows, seeing kids come up to it at gas stations, you know, letting them sit in it, take photos, especially knowing 20 years ago, that was me. That was me, the 10-year-old, going to my first Cars and Coffee, seeing a Gallardo, seeing an F430, seeing a Countach, with my jaw on the floor. To now be able to share that with the new generation, it's really, really cool. So I don't really have any negative things to say about my ownership. It has just been a really cool car to own. Future plans with it, I don't have any immediate plans to sell it. I did not buy this car just to flip it or get rid of it quickly. I'm enjoying it every step of the way. The only things that would make me sell it just depend on other life things. You know, my wife and I bought some property. We do plan on building our dream home in a couple years. If in 2 years, you know, given the economy, if it gets way better to where building is much more affordable and something that we are ready to do, but selling this, you know, makes that happen in a flip of a switch, I would do that. I would literally sell this to build the new house, mainly because there's a lot more resources that take going into building a house. I mean, the economy, pricing can change that by hundreds of thousands of dollars. This car has fluctuated within 20 grand over the last 10 years. From 120 to 140 is where this car has always been. So if I did sell this to build, I could always buy another one of these regardless of how the economy turns out. Other reasons, if I find that I don't really drive this, given it's only a two-seater, maybe a 911 GT3 would be a replacement because you can do a backseat kit in those cars, and that car gives you the naturally aspirated characteristic just like this car, and I can get one for similar pricing. Other than that, maybe in the future, a Huracan Tecnica would probably be the car that I would go for next. And that's really only when I'm ready for more refinements. This is a raw car. It is not something you can spend more than 8 hours in without being very sore. So I'm sure as I get older, I'm 30, almost 31 years old now, I'm sure at some point I will want more refinements and a smoother delivery of power rather than this aggressive transmission. So at the current moment, I love it, but I can see in the future probably dialing it down to more precision, more refinements one day. But not at all considering anything in the time being. If someone made me a stupid offer right now, I'd probably sell it, but it would have to be incredibly high and I would have just built the house now. So with all that said, owning this car for a year has been cool. It's really, really cool, I would say, is one of the biggest things. It's also really, really rewarding. You know, this car probably, I would say, changed my life. You know, when I got the model car, it may have been just a toy, a $15 toy my parents got me, but that kind of shaped the rest of my life to where I wanted to buy an expensive car one day. I wasn't rich. I didn't grow up with millions or anything like that. I wasn't spoiled. I had the off-brand clothes, the packed lunches every day. We had a nice, comfortable, middle-class house. I was very fortunate that we never had to struggle for money, but we were not rich or anything. My parents had cars 10 years at a time, 100, 200,000 miles, and then they would get the new one. Their budget was always 20 grand. So this is not what I grew up with. However, what I did grow up with is when my dad and my mom would take me to car shows, you know, and I said I would buy a Lamborghini one day, they never laughed at that or said that was stupid or said, you know, you're not rich, you can't buy a car like that, that won't work. They always told me, do it, go make it happen. If you want a car like that, go earn it, make it happen. So having the passion to buy a car like this, it wasn't just because I wanted to look at me, I can buy a six-figure car. It was never that reason. It was just this car, the way it looked, the way it sounded. The photos and videos that I saw of this car back in the early days, they just spoke to me. And whatever the pricing was, obviously when I was 11, I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know the price of this. That was irrelevant. It was just the car looked so cool, I wanted one day. So as I grew up, obviously I learned, okay, it's gonna be over 100 grand. How the heck do I make 100 grand to buy a car like this? And it kind of just fueled me to make good decisions. You know, in college, I was not partying. I was not doing any of the things that college kids do. I was spending all my free time filming YouTube videos, which cost me money. I didn't make money doing these YouTube videos 10 years ago. So I was doing my passion to maybe one day somehow build a business around something I loved. And I wasn't focusing on wasting time and money. So I just made the good decisions. I lived on a super strict budget starting in college. Obviously when you're a kid, your parents are buying your food, your clothes, all that stuff. When you're in college, that's kind of that transition of it's up to me. And that's kind of how my parents set it up to where when we started college, it's up to you. This is your life. You can either sink to the bottom or rise to the top. And it was 100% up to me once I was, 17, 18 years old to achieve anything in my life. My parents taught me a lot of things. They taught me how to budget money. They kind of taught me how to not get sucked into consumerism, buying every little gadget. I didn't even get a cell phone until I was 16, and it was a $5 flip phone when all my friends had the touchscreen smartphones. So I grew up with the simple stuff, honestly, and from college to now, I mean, we're talking, I started college in 2012. So since then, I've just lived on a strict budget. My wife and I, she grew up the same way I did. We pack our lunches every time we leave the house. We make our dinners together. We make our own breakfasts. We only drink water. All the clothes we each have are from clearance. She shops sales like crazy. And that makes it to where there's a lot of extra money to buy fun cars. So the cars are my passion. They're the only material item I like. Other than the cars, I don't really care about having the newest phone, clothes, the gadgets. I don't care. My phone is 5 years old. My wife's phone has a button still. So living simple, this car has taught me to just live simple, go without what everybody else has. And it saves so much money. The amount of money people spend on their morning coffees over 20 years is about as much as you need to put down on a car like this and have 50% equity. Like, it is astronomical how much money you will save over 10 to 20 years when you pack your own foods, don't eat at restaurants, don't eat fast food, don't drink coffee. It's simple. Now again, live your life however you want. That is the goal in life, and just be positive with it. And that's how I got to this car, just living extremely simple. And I don't miss any of that stuff. When I was younger, people thought I was missing out because I didn't have the coolest phones, those expensive whatever shoes. Couldn't care less. I got my shoes from Costco and they worked just fine. and I get to drive my Lamborghini. I almost have this paid off already. I put a lot down on it, only financed a little to write it off for some business use, which I didn't have any intention of writing any of this off for business use, but obviously day 5 kind of changed that plan a little bit. But anyways, 1 year owning the Gallardo. Amazing car. I would very much recommend one. It is so cool. It is a driving experience unlike anything else. I love it. I love it. I love it. As far as material items go, while I don't really care about them in general, this is still just a car. It is a fun toy and very well worth it, and it keeps me motivated every day to keep working hard towards the next batch of goals that my wife and I have. And every time I look at this, I just remember the last 20 years. So it's crazy. That is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, stay tuned for plenty more content, and I'll see you all in the next video.